Okay, well, thank you for having me. I mean, first and foremost, thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about Grow. How many of you are we even on your radar for enrichment as the nonprofit that built the first public food forest for the city? So a couple of you are aware. So for the rest of everybody's knowledge, there is a public food forest that is the largest food forest in the entire southeast of the country, sitting in Two Rivers Park. It covers about 14 acres worth of the regional park. And we're going to chat a little bit about it. And I'll kind of breeze through some of these slides. This is a PowerPoint we've used before, and I'll kind of go through it really quickly on some parks so I can spend more time on the parks that we probably are more interested in. Our name is an acronym. It stands for Guidance, Research, Outreach, and Wonder. And these are the 4 key things that we really wanted to zero in on when we created the concept of Grow, which was really a blend. In its creation, we were blending, trying to figure out a solution to solve the critical failure point of both community gardens and school gardens. I was working in school garden movement in Nashville, and the other co-founder was working in community garden movement in Evansville, Indiana. And both of us were seeing the same thing causes failure in both projects. Everybody wants to build a community garden. Everybody wants to build a school garden. Nobody wants to maintain it during June and July. And they become overrun and overweedy. And the city, whether it's a community garden and the city's dealing with it, or it's a school garden and the school district's dealing with it, on both fronts, the government entities are like, once it's overgrown, it's attracting snakes and rats and other things that we can't have in the urban core, and you either fix it or we dismantle it. So most school gardens and most community gardens don't live more than 5 years in Nashville historically. Most school gardens don't make it more than 3 before they're disassembled by Metro School District for lack of maintenance. The Bell Garden, though, is one example that has been fabulously. And that was the secret sauce for the Bell Garden, was that they got their community involved, and that's how they were able to maintain it. So in that, we were like, it's that teach a man to fish rather than provide them with a fish. So we wanted to use research-based methods, and that's how we came to the model of permaculture. This is me. It shows Betsy Littrell as our president, but that is no longer accurate. Forgive us. We've been busy on the ground doing the work and not having a lot of time for admin stuff. By the way, we have roles open on our board, and we'd love to have you guys get involved, especially if you have administrative skills. This is our footprint at Two Rivers Park for orientation. Everybody gets confused about how to find us because we are sitting inside the regional park and therefore cannot have a unique address. They cannot issue us an address because we are inside the park. So our address is the address for Two Rivers Regional Park, which was the 2nd largest park holding in the city before they bought the Ravenwood Golf Course Complex further into Dawson. So this is McGavick Pike for your orientation. Two Rivers Dog Park is sitting right here. The mansion is sitting right here, the historical mansion. And so off of McGavick, you kind of take this little road if you were headed to the dog park, but instead you're going to turn right in between the green balusters there. And this is the Stones River Greenway. It sweeps under McGavick. The main public orchard is sitting out here. It's a 2-acre orchard with several hundred trees in it. And then this is our designated parking area. This half of the forest is currently under our maintenance and care. Along with all of that and the upper forest area and the nature play area, and then our demonstrations, our gardens are down there. This is on hold for now. Future goals for an apiary program. So we have a couple of programs that meet every week. One is called Dirt Church on Tuesday nights, where you just meet us in the garden. You don't have to sign up, you just show up. We provide all the tools and a free permaculture education and gardening. And it's just a community building program. And the other one is Saturday mornings, 9 to 12 for forest care. That has turned out to be the beefiest part of taking on management of a public park. I am going to briefly talk a little bit about goats. Here's some pictures of adorable baby goats. These are our goats, except that's Milo when he was a baby, and he's 6 years old now. He's a big boy now. And the reason that we left this in for today is because, when we took over that huge parcel of land, and I'll just leave this up here and you can read it. I'll talk about it. You saw how much woodlot was there, and we were like, oh, this is great, because we want to teach about sustainability and urban wildlife and how to restore land in order that it meets the needs of people and wildlife. You saw that it was completely landlocked by urban development. And that's really like, that area is a wildlife corridor and a safe haven for the wildlife in the Donaldson area. And so we were like, this is great. We've got this huge forest to take care of. And then I had a friend come through who had worked for the forestry department and was part of Tennessee Naturalists. And I said, could you do a little survey and just tell me what we got going on in there so I can write curriculum to teach kids and other people about it? And he did that. And he came back and said, I am so sorry. No, this was like a month after we got the keys to the gate in 2018. He said, Ginger Rose, I'm really sorry to be the person to tell you this, but you can't save that forest. It's dying. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, it's completely overrun by invasive non-native flora, like detrimental. You cannot save it. And I was like, I don't, invasive non-native what? I don't know what you just said to me, but I need you to educate me and send me to the people who can tell me how to fix this, because I don't believe you. I don't believe you that it can't be fixed. The total woodlot is not more than 8 acres worth of woodlot. And so in that, I wonder if I can find I might just leave it there for a minute. It's only about 8 acres worth of woodlot. So that really became like the beginning huge tackle for us. It's like, oh my gosh, we can't really start food foresting in this particular urban forest until we address the invasive plant issue. So that led us to partnering with the Weed Wrangle people through Garden Club of America. We hosted our first Weed Wrangle in 2018, the very first year. We got the keys in January, and here we were in March with 75 goats on one side of the trail and 80 human volunteers on the other side of the trail doing a massive Weed Wrangle event. And later down the line, Tribeca Urban Farm ended up saying, you really need your own goat herd. Like, the problem is so severe, you're not ever really going to get it until you have your own animals to manage that. At the time, it was sort of unheard of to have a situation like that. So we accepted a donation of goats from them, and then it just, the way it fell out was that logistically we had kind of put the cart in front of the horse, and we didn't realize what was really involved with targeted grazing a woodlot until we got into it and realized, oh gosh, we are years away from actually being able to use the goats there. And that kind of sent us on a journey of, we were housing them at various farms outside the city, and then we pull Milo in as our spokes goat for special events, and he shows up to Weed Wrangle, and he's been to Earth Day Festival, and he functions as our spokes goat. By the way, all of our goats are a heritage breed to Tennessee. They're fainting goats, myotonic goats, and we name them all after things that can kill them so that we remember what not to feed them. So Milo the grain, highly poisonous to goats. Please do not feed him Milo grain. And so in that, we spent 6 years removing things by hand with volunteers. We've probably clocked, my guesstimate, we've probably clocked somewhere around 8,000 hours at least of human labor. We've probably engaged around 5,000 to 6,000 human volunteers over 6 years on just hand removal of invasive plants. Because the thing is, with targeted grazing, they still have to be under containment by law. When you're using livestock in the city limits, they have to be under containment. And so that means you have to move a fence into the system, an electric netting fence, and then put the goats in the fence, and then they eat everything that's in their paddock. And they will strip it to the soil, completely to the soil, and it looks scary to the public. People are shocked when they see what happens. But then you take them off that footprint, and that footprint is now sterile, like it's got fertilizer on it. Goats are ruminants. Any seeds that they ingest of all those invasive plants, when those seeds pass through their body, they're sterilized when they come out the other end. So they really, you give it a month or two after taking them off that footprint, and you're like, whoa, it's so lush and green, it's beautiful. So 6 years later, we're finally at the stage where we can get the fence into the woods. And we formed a new partnership with Metro Schools and McGavick High School. And so those are our goats at McGavick High School. And we will soon be buying new fences, and you're going to be seeing us walking the goats down the Stone River Greenway to graze them at grow and then put them back safe in the barn at night. And that was like a really wonderful partnership that came about for us this year, because McGavick has not hosted large animals since before pandemic. Those of you who are local know that during pandemic, our entire school system shut down and went to virtual academy, like many others across the country. McGavick has the livestock program. Each high school gets a different part of the ag program. So McGavick has the pre-veterinary medicine tract. And so for them, the school closing down for a year meant animals went away. And then there was a new teacher hired on the other side of pandemic. And they've been very, very slow and careful in reintegrating. So doing it this way, where there's us there to support them, to make sure the animals are healthy and well kept and they know what they're doing, and the students get good training, is a real advantage to them. And us having our goats within walking distance of the project site is going to be game changing. So that kind of was like a tangent to just give you a taste of what the daily life of managing a public park is like. With us, with Grow, these are kind of, this is a little bit about our demonstration gardens. This no longer exists. In the beginning, we set out to show people, permaculture was new and a lot of people didn't know about permaculture. So we split the garden in half, and half of it was built terrace raised bed gardens, which is the advised way to do it if you're gonna do it in Tennessee. And then the other side was hugelkultur mounds. Anybody raise your hand if you know what a hugelkultur mound is? Okay, for those that don't know, you dig a giant trench in the ground. So ours, we replaced the other side with more hugelkultur. So basically each one of our rows, when you go out to the garden, is about 5 feet deep below ground. Huge trench, 3 to 4 feet wide, 30 feet long. It has riprap rocks in the base of it to help catch water that is moving underground. And then it's backfilled with dead tree logs. Part of the permaculture model, just briefly, is that, one of the tenets is that you're supposed to close your carbon cycle completely. So with us, we practice things do not leave the park. If we have to fell a tree on the property, that tree is 100% recycled into the property. The top crown of the tree goes through the wood chipper, and all the chips go into the forest to feed the forest. Or in the garden pathways, and then the base part of it gets cut up into chunks to either be used as seeding or to be put in hugelkultur mounds like this to create decomposing material underground. But it's basically fed back to the system instead of being removed and sent to the landfill. So with that, that's what went into the holes, and then we just mounded her up over it, and we grow food on top of the mound. And what's great about that is that the forest that sits kind of right above it, I wish I could see all my slides at once so I could bounce around a little bit more. Is there a way to do that? I'm not super savvy.
You can probably stop share and you can see them on here.
Okay.
Yeah. You would just have to click on them so people.
I was hoping I had a better.
And then you also have those right there, but I don't know if that's what you were talking about.
Yeah. I want this one. Can we make this one big? I'll just use this one. Great.
Oh, I keep hitting share. Sorry.
So on that one, you'll be able to see, so there's a lot of forest right above the gardens. And it's all uphill, and there's water below us. Water always moves downhill. So with permaculture, you're looking to work with nature's natural systems, and everything that grows 100% off-grid. No running water, no electricity, none. So when rain falls in the neighborhood up here, it's headed into the ground, and through this forest system, it's running underground towards the lake. And these huge basins that are the hugelkultur mounds basically catch the water and slow it down as it's moving towards the lake long enough for the plants to take it up. And so that's where we're at with that. And this gives you a pretty good visual of our layout too. This is taken from our master design plan that was made for us by Ozark Mountain Permaculture after we hosted Permaculture Action Day. So some of it exists already, but some of it doesn't. This shows some future plans for expansion of the public orchard area. But ultimately the goal is that everything that's being put in the public orchard will get integrated into the forests as well when we get a handle on the invasive plant situation. What else? I don't know what, like what part of it? There's so much that goes into it that really, we got the PDs in 2018. So that makes us what, 6 years in? And I feel like we're finally starting to get our footing, on what it takes to manage that much space. It's a lot, and one of the biggest things that's been challenging for us is just maintaining grass. So moving the goats to the project site is going to be really beneficial for us for that. Maybe it can take some questions. It might be easier. Go ahead. No, because it's ambitious. So when we went to Parks Department and we asked them, we proposed our project to Parks, Jim Hester looked me in the face and he goes, well, so like how long of a land use do you think you need? And I was like, 50 years might be a good start. And he literally laughed in my face. He's like, Ginger Rose, we don't do that. We do not hand over 14 acres of a public park to a not fully established yet nonprofit for 50 years. We're not doing that. How about 1 year?
Yeah.
So they stuck us in the community gardening bucket because they didn't know what to do with us. And all community gardens in Nashville run on a 1-year cyclical land use agreement with Parks Department with the city. So it just renews every year, but we started this journey very, very aware that at any point in the future, Parks Department could decide to do something else with this land and pull it. But so far, so good. But yeah, I think 50 years was still a good estimate just to get it established. Yes.
You can do a whole separate meeting. for goats.
Yeah.
One question, how do I borrow the goats?
How would you, yes, that's a great idea. So we've been talking about how to make the goats earn their keep. They are expensive and we have spent, Ginger Rose has spent 6 years keeping that entire herd alive alone on her money during the time that Grow could not afford to maintain them. So Grow has only just recently taken them back under the primary care of the nonprofit. It's been Ginger Rose that has been feeding them for 6 years. And so we've got some ideas about that. We're going to be launching a goat sponsorship program. And we are actually going to be our team is going to be at the Hip Donaldson Farmers Market tonight with Milo. So if you would like to meet our official ambassador spokesgoat Milo, tonight, go to the Hip Donaldson Farmers Market and find Gro's booth. They'll be out there. He loves to take selfies. If you pull out your camera and do this, he's gonna come straight in for the kiss. So be ready to click the phone. He knows his job. He's very well trained. He is quite a charming man. And so we're gonna be looking at that, and then we'll be at the farmers market again, I think at the end of next month, and we'll be launching that sponsorship program at that time. We're also going to be gearing up to do our first public open barnyard event with the school. Probably looking at the second week of July, the end of the second week of July for that. So keep an eye on our socials for that, because we know the community is excited. Everybody's excited to meet the goats, and we want people to see. We want people to meet them. And we've batted around ideas of like, okay, for a a donation of X amount, we'll bring Milo to your event. For $1,000, we'll stick Milo in your CEO's office and lock him in there for the day. Just see what happens. I mean, you want to prank your CEO? Talk to us. That's kind of how it works. But it's also a matter of understanding too, like we are tiny nonprofit. We're still 100% volunteer run. I do not pull a salary out of Grow. We only have about 3 or 4 core people involved with running the nonprofit, which is why we're very actively saying, if you've got grant writing skills, administrative skills, if you want to run our Instagram and take that off of Ginger Rose's and Angela's plate, that would be great. What kinds of things, because we need a bigger team to really actualize the things we want to actualize. But at the end of the day, we're not really in the business of doing targeted grazing, and we get those kinds of requests a lot, like, can we hire your goat herd to come out? But it depends, like, well, do you want to do the work on the front end of clearing a path for that fence? Because that's hard labor, and I've done it a lot, and it's exhausting. I lost 70 pounds doing that hard labor. It's exhausting because nothing can be touching the fence or it grounds out and it's not secure. So if you want to put it in a woodlot that's overgrown, you have to clear like a 3-foot wide path for the fence so that you can get around the fence and that nothing's touching it. That's what makes targeted grazing hard. Yes.
How often do you hold public events where you bring people in to do the kind of land that you're describing, whether it's removing invasives or space for fencing for goats or whatever?
Perfect. Yeah. So we are always going to continue to be a partner for Weed Wrangle. So first Saturday in March every year, always Grow will be on the list for Weed Wrangle. And then we try to post. We currently do not have a volunteer coordinator on the team. It's one of the positions we're looking to fill, is someone who can just stay on top of scheduling those regular volunteer events and putting them up on Hands on Nashville or wherever we want to post them. But we did like create 2 regular weekly programs that I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting. So Dirt Church is our gardening volunteer opportunity. It's not a religious thing, it's a community building theme. And it's based in 2019, we hosted Permaculture Action Day with several other big partners. And one of those was a band called Rising Appalachia. And there is a line in one of their songs where she says, "Dirt Church is where you'll find me. Like I will be connecting with the earth and caring for the earth. That is my church." And so that's where we got the name of Dirt Church from, because they were the partner band to promote our event. And it was like a nod of gratitude to them. So Tuesday nights, 5:30 to sunset, you literally just show up if you want to dig in the garden. And then Saturday mornings, 9 to 12, same thing, just show up in the parking lot and we'll pull out all the forest care tools out of the shed and we'll head into the forest to work on forest. Right now, we're targeting the riparian buffer zone. There's a waterway that goes to the forest. There are 3 natural springs in that system. And so we've decided we're at the stage where we've removed enough of the privet and bush honeysuckle that we can get people and fences in. But the issue in this particular forest, the reason this forest is at end stage collapse right now is because of an invasive plant called euonymus, and the common name is called winter creeper. And I saw it for sale in a Lowe's last summer. It's sold as a ground cover. It should be banned. It's on the top 10 most invasive plants in our country. It should be illegal to sell or distribute it. And I don't know what to do about that. Maybe some of us in here who want to get involved in politics can lobby about that because it's insidious. The plant is insidious. It has created basically a 12-inch thick carpet across the entire forest floor. And then more problematic, it does not stay on the ground. It will find a host tree, go up the tree, completely encase the crown of the tree, steal all the resources. The tree dies, falls over, and pushes it another 200 feet into the forest. So that's how the problem got there in the first place. So for us, we were looking at the system and we're like, you know, we've made good progress removing bush honeysuckle and privet. You can kind of have an open sight line through that woodlot now and you can see through it. But the euonymus is killing the trees. It's killing everything because it's covering the soil and none of the native plants can even, the seeds can't germinate because they can't get any sun. So we're like, we only have a couple options here. Like it has to be done quickly or we're not gonna save it. Controlled burn was the first suggestion, but I kind of axed that because, again, like this is all shaved grass for the Metro School campus. Like this is grass that is 1 inch tall, not able to support wildlife at all. Concrete, residential development. The rest of the park is also maintained like the golf course, 1 inch tall grass. So we're looking at a pocket forest that is just chock full of wildlife. I've been counting species. We probably have as much biodiversity and wildlife as Radnor Lake, including the eagles. We have a new set of native eagles that are near our property. We also have nesting kingfishers on the lakeshore. This forest is full of our state, you know, the eastern box turtle. We're supporting a large population of deer. There are both red and silver foxes, wild turkeys, all kinds of animals in this woodlot, and doing a controlled burn would be devastating, devastating. The next option suggested was a machine that's been developed called a forestry mulcher. I don't know if anyone have ever heard of that piece of equipment. It's trending really heavy in regenerative land management communities. It's meant for this purpose. It's a machine that has like bladey, grippy, sharp things, and it basically goes through and it rotates and it just like rips and mulches everything at the same time. Also would be devastating to the wildlife. So we went with option 3, it has to be hand removed by humans. And so that's another ask, and that's why we decided to institute the Saturday program. Because we're like, we're gonna have to be out there year round, removing. And we decided to start with the waterway because we've already got a plan in place for how to put in a riparian buffer zone there. So we had a huge event with Marriott last month. They brought about 80 volunteers and we got about 10 feet on both sides of the waterway, cleared most of the way down, at least on one half for sure. We're making good progress there. And already only, like I'm already seeing native plants coming up out of the soil, which is just a testament to like, this will work. And, you know, unfortunately it's sometimes, in some ways, it's frustrating to be like, oh, we've got to spend so many hours of human labor to fix this. But also, the reality is, it's our fault. It is our fault. It is humans' fault. It is a result of human activity and the introduction of invasive non-native species. It is because of human activity that the system is in this condition. And so I feel like we have a moral and social responsibility to fix what we broke, you know? So I don't like doing the work. I get out there and I pull it out. Anybody else? Yep.
What's the acres on the forest?
So all total, all of this is about 14. So I know that like this footprint is 2.5 acres from here to here. So that's gonna give us about 6 acres in this pocket here. And then we also have this upper forest in our care right now, which is like another 3 acres or so. And also, side note, one thing we're having huge success already within the forest. Early on, when we started removing invasive plants, we found in here first, a large stand like of mature pawpaw trees. So we cleared around that and we actually submitted that road to Metro Beautification's historical tree protection plan and it won. And so that was years ago. So Metro put a historical overlay. Here's the Megadix Greenhouse Trail. Those pawpaw trees are sitting right here. So this part of Two Rivers Regional Park can never have commercial property on it. It can never be developed because it has been protected by Metro Beautification. But since we have continued the work, there's also another grove up there. I tagged about 600 pawpaws in this system and another 400 pawpaws in that system. So we're managing over 1,000 wild pawpaws. And when we started, like up there, the pawpaws were only at the far end, and now they run almost the whole width of the system. Same thing here. I found the parent trees here with babies running that direction. We now have them growing all the way over to here. The pawpaws are spreading like wildflower, and then elderberry has come up of its own free will. All through that same stretch. And so those are wins for us in terms of food in the forest and things that we're continuing to manage. And if you didn't know already, pawpaw is the only host plant for our state butterfly, the zebra swallowtail. So it's pretty important. Yeah. Anything else? What else? Yes.
I think you've already answered part of my question.
Yeah.
It sounds like the native seed base is responding to the removal of invasives. Do you think it's enough to keep them from returning, or is it?
I
That
think-
might be a mixed answer because of
Yeah.
where it is and everything.
Yeah, I think, you know, our strike here is like, we've proven that the native seed is in the soil because we're seeing native plants reemerging in areas where we've been able to stay on top of re-clearing. I mean, obviously with a tiny team, we have to split our attention between maintaining the garden and maintaining the orchard and the woods and all the things. But, you know, with what we've been able to do, we are seeing the evidence and we already know that. I mean, as people who work with the earth, the soil is a bank. Like all the native trees that are in there are dropping seeds all the time. The native plant seeds are in the soil. The problem is them not being able to germinate because they can't get any of the resources. They can't get the sunlight. So I do think we're gonna see that, but we also, Bent Tiegler, who runs Ozark Mountain Permaculture, created a custom blend specific for us for this region. Like he did the legwork to do the research on what we are supposed to reseed this forest with to make sure that we bring back all the native ferns and wildflowers and other species that are supposed to be in the system. So we're at that moment now. Actually, I just had a conversation with the team a couple weeks ago about, okay, we're ready to order that seed pack from Ben for the area that we cleared on the riparian buffer zone. So yeah, I think we are going to see a comeback pretty quickly. I will tell you very honestly, I don't have a lot of hope for saving most of the canopy trees in that system.
Yeah.
Most of them were already too far gone when we got there, and we've done what we could to try to preserve them and prolong them. But, you know, the reality is when you have a total collapse of a woodlot like that, if you want to put it back together, you have to understand forests grow in successions.
Yeah.
So what we have coming up, like bazillions of elm trees are coming up in that system, because elm is typically at the front end of that succession. You know, and then we have seen, we had a practice with we used to have a homeschool program that we hosted out of the project site. So in the fall, we would go through with our preschoolers. We have a massive oak tree sitting right here. And we would have the preschoolers gather up all the acorns and pretend to be squirrels. And we would go on hiking adventures all over the property and have them bury their acorns all through the woods. And I will tell you, I have seen multiple 3-foot tall oak trees coming like around the woodlot. I'm like, yes, preschoolers are saving the forest. You know, and so do what we can. I also started my own tree nursery. I got really fascinated with the pawpaw tree specifically. And what I learned about pawpaw, this is just a fun side quest because I'm a nerd about science and trees. Pawpaw, when all the other trees were choosing pollinators, by the way, we have over 7,000 types of native bees in North America that pollinate most of our trees. Trees were choosing pollinators way back in evolutionary history, and pawpaw was just like, man, everybody's picking bees. That's basic. I'm gonna pick something different. And pawpaw chose flies and beetles, which are lousy pollinators, absolutely lousy pollinators. The pawpaw flower is tiny dark purple flower that kind of smells like rotten meat. In its attempt to attract those flies and beetles, not very successful. And because it turned out to be not a successful strategy, the pawpaw did what a lot of other trees and a lot of other species, which you'll recognize it for bamboo, did this, developed a secondary strategy of being able to clone itself from its root system. So what we realized was like the 10 or so adult trees that we had here that got the historical overlay, all the other 600 something babies that were around it were mostly just exact genetic clones of the parent trees. Because we're like, we have quite a few and we're only getting like 3 pawpaw fruits a year out of the system. What is going on? And it's because they're all genetic clones. And as we know, in science, that doesn't work. You need genetic diversity. And this is a saying that we say all the time at Grow. One of our mantras is nature favors diversity. It's even on the back of our volunteer shirts. Nature favors diversity, not only in plant life, but also in communities. When you create a monoculture, you collapse the system. So with that, I was like, okay, how do I get more pawpaw fruit into the hands of the public and the system? One technique, which we've proven works, is from the indigenous tribes, hanging raw fish in the trees when the trees are flowering, does in fact produce more. And we have tried it with our students as a research experience. We've done, had them study, like they'll take one group of pawpaw trees and hang raw beef, and another section gets raw chicken, and another section gets fish. I would say chicken and fish are the winners. The chicken went really well too, like within seconds of putting it in the tree, like there's flies everywhere. Yeah, but it's tedious work to bait your trees like that. So the second option is genetic diversity. So how do you get genetic diversity? And I was like, well, let's start learning how to grow pawpaws from seeds. So that's what I did, and I have a whole bunch of pawpaws that I grow from seeds so that I can plant them in there and try to get a little bit of diversity in there.
Would that even be a moneymaker for you by getting some of your clone pawpaws out, trading them with some?
I think so. I think it'd be great. I think it'd be great. I've been wanting to talk to Kentucky State University is the closest university that has a large pawpaw research program. And they will issue you seeds. Like if you write them, they'll give you seeds. It's not as hard to germinate them as you might think. A lot of people are like, oh, they're impossible to germinate. No, they're not. You just stick them in your refrigerator for 120 days and then take them out and warm them up and put them in a pot of dirt, and then they grow. So it's just the stratification, which is incidentally why the pawpaw is the only tropical fruit tree that is native to North America. You cannot take that tree to South America and grow it. It's not gonna happen. It's not a true tropical tree. It looks like a tropical tree, and the fruit is a tropical fruit. It looks kind of like a mango and tastes like a blend between mango, banana, and vanilla syrup. But the tree itself requires a hard, cold freeze. It requires 120 days of stratification for the seed to be able to germinate. So its range is actually from right about here, really the top of Georgia, the very top of Georgia, all the way up to mid-Ohio, straight through the center of the country, is the main range for the pawpaw species. Yeah, what else? In Ohio.
Yeah. I haven't been, but I've seen pawpaws there.
It's amazing. You know, and what's fun about that is too, like, you know, you've never seen it in a grocery store because it doesn't have a shelf life. When it's fully ripe, it falls from the tree, and that's part of why, so Neil Peterson, I think it was, is the person, there's a whole book about him. He's the person who began cultivating the pawpaw tree age of decades, like 4 decades ago, through a research grant with Ohio State University. And he now has something like 14 different cultivars that are patented under his name. And with that, the goal was to make the tree shorter, more bushier, and set more fruit, and for the fruit to have more fruit pulp and fewer seeds. Because when you open a wild pawpaw, it's like mostly seeds inside. It's got these big, massive seeds. So with that, yeah, the pawpaw that's full is really fun. And it's about the only time that you either have to get the fruit directly off the tree, or you can get it. We had a fundraiser one year, we wanted to make like pawpaw muffins or something. And so we called a farm in Ohio that's production farming them. And they're like, yeah, we can ship you some flash frozen. And I was like, great, how much is that? $28 a pound. Yeah. Yeah, so I was like, maybe I'll just plant like 5,000 more. So that everybody can just come to Rivers Park and get more pawpaw. There are also pawpaw trees in the front corner of Centennial Park, by the way. They did a planting of cultivated trees about 8 years ago. I've been watching those trees very closely. 3 of them, 2 of them for sure have died between last year and this year. And I have thoughts about it. I have gone up there and at night and trimmed those trees myself. Over the last 8 years, because I'm like, Parks is not trimming the tree correctly, I'm going to go prune it myself.
So you talked about different partnerships.
Yeah.
With Metro Parks.
Yeah,
What kind of partnerships have you got at the state?
none yet, and I hope they're there. We should talk about that, because we're there, part of my, there's a lot of different ways to build a nonprofit initiative like this, and for me, a lot of people who would have an idea this big would create this document. This is like a 20-page document that you're seeing this slide from that shows our entire master plan for the development of the site. Most people would do that first and then take the document to like, Amazon and, everybody else is like, give us money to build this thing. And instead, I decided that it really needed to be a grassroots movement because I was worried that I didn't want it to become top heavy, where like we had this massive amount of money that people had donated and it didn't have the capacity or didn't yet have our footing and the know-how to allocate that funding appropriately. And that mattered a lot to me because like, again, I asked for 50 years. This is not like a half-baked idea. This is something that I'm investing a lot of my time and life energy in, and I want it to live beyond my lifetime, which is very finite. I'm very, very aware that Ginger Rose will not be here in 40 years if I'm lucky, so I want to make sure that we build it the right way. So instead, I just sort of did it on the DL really quietly until I felt like I had something to show where I could say, this is already fully in production. This orchard is in full production now. The primary crop is chestnuts. All of the chestnut trees are in production. It is not, we did originally plant 100% American chestnuts from the American Chestnut Foundation. When we were planting the orchard in 2018, they found out that the primary crop was going to be chestnut, and they came in at the last minute and they insisted that we use their 100% chestnut, American chestnut seedlings. And I'm telling you, they were the most pathetic seedlings I've ever seen in my life. Like every one of those trees was a 1-year-old seedling, but those particular trees were just very weak looking. And we planted all of them. Came back the next spring, had 100% success of all other species and 100% failure of all chestnuts. None of them survived that first winter. So then we went and we replanted them with a hybrid called Celestial, which we obtained from Al Gore's farm out near Carthage. That's what they planted. They had planted like 7,000 of those out there. So that Celestial breed is like 99% American chestnut and 1% Chinese chestnut, to make it resistant to the blight, because this school here, Two Rivers Middle, uses 100% of the money that their PTO can raise every year to maintain a food and clothing bank year round. They are up there packing lunches for their kids today. They're handing out meals during the summer to make sure their kids stay fed. So for us, the goal was to get shelf stable protein into this food bank and into the hands of the public. At maturity, each one of the chestnut trees will have a 50-foot crown and is supposed to produce 2,000 pounds of chestnuts per year. And so then around that, there are also we have 100% straight up just traditional red American plums and also native persimmon in this orchard. And the top row is mostly mulberry to keep the birds off of the other fruits. And I will tell you that, again, with us having a permaculture model and being very committed to native species, there are only 2 places where we plant anything that has been cultivated, like it's been changed somehow. And the cultivated chestnut was the exception for the orchard. Everything else going into the orchard is native trees. There's American smoke tree up there. There's yellow wood tree. We installed a coffee tree. I don't know if you've ever heard of a Kentucky coffee tree. Those are fascinating trees. We'd like to do a lot more of that. Nothing cultivated can be planted in this woodlot. That's like our internal rules. And then we have a few cultivated plum trees sitting in a ring up here, but the same rules will apply for that woodlot. Like no cultivated things other than maybe integrating a few of those cultivated pawpaws into the pawpaw groves. So that's what we're looking at with that too.
Yeah, I think we have time for one more question.
Sure.
What's your favorite book, podcast that's kind of relevant in this area that have a lot of it?
Oh my gosh. I will say very truthfully that I don't have a lot of time to read. I have an entire library full of books that I like skim.
Yeah.
And I would say probably the thing that's been most useful to me in my journey with this was one, going through Master Gardener's training in 2015, which connected me to a lot of other people from various aspects. It gave me, I know who to go to for hard state questions. I know who to go to when I have questions about heirloom flowers. I know who to go to. And then my second most beneficial thing that happened in my journey was joining TWIG. I'll tell you very honestly. It was the connections that I made through TWIG that gave me access to people who have the resources to help me figure out how to do this. So I would say connecting and community is probably the best. Books are great. I love to read books when I have time, but I don't have time. Between being a single parent and working 5 to 7 jobs and also running a nonprofit, not a lot of time for reading. So, with that, all right.